You're listening to For Clients Only, a podcast by Harvest Advisors. I'm David Rookie.
And I'm Sean Cook.
Hey, Sean, how are we today?
We're good.
Well, I was going to try to make this sound rosy, but this is actually a very important podcast. We want to talk to all of you about things that are going on, obviously geopolitically, and going to kick things right off talking a little bit about what's going on in Iran.
No one really knows when there's war how it's going to change and what will happen, how it will turn out. The expectation is that this conflict will be short-lived and that it will not impact the global economy too much or too poorly. I think that's all yet to be seen. We are in the middle of it and have not a lot of plan, if any, around this war. And the fear has been that for the global economy, apart from the human suffering and everything else involved in the conflict in that region, the fear is that it will drive up oil prices and other prices as well. And that in the past has been enough to push global economies, into recession and have hard times. Um, if you're so inclined, you can certainly listen to a lot of experts that are out in media. Not everybody's an expert, but you can get a lot of information around it. The big issue is that the Straits of Hormuz, where about 20% of the world's crude oil is shipped through, um, can be closed by Iran. And at the moment, it largely has been. A couple other things around that are that it's not just oil that goes through there. A similar percentage, 20 to 30% of the feedstocks for fertilizer and a lot of other raw materials that go beyond just oil prices also go through there. So closing this down for a little while, if it becomes a long period, then for the oil portion, you have to shut down production in Saudi and other countries around, because they are building up oil and they can only hold so much before they have to stop producing it. And once you put wells out of production, it takes a while to bring them back. So it's in the world's interest for this conflict to come to a swift conclusion. We have seen some hopeful things, even with the straits being closed and Iran largely controlling them at this point. Some tankers have gone through. And so what it appears to be is that Iran's starting to let some of their own oil through so that, and we've seen the oil price spike and then come back down. It's certainly higher than where it was when this started. But the hope is that we'll muddle through this and the conflict will be resolved. And then another month from now, we'll be talking about oil prices gradually coming down. Regardless, all of this is putting a big shock into the world economy that will probably translate to at least slightly higher inflation around the world. Not necessarily huge. One of the brighter spots is that I think of the OPEC embargo in the 70s, which only lasted for about 6 months, but had knock-on effects for years in the economy at that time. It's a very different world now. Globally, the energy mix is much different. Renewables and nuclear and others take up a bigger proportion than they did. The U.S. is actually technically energy independent. We produce more energy than we consume. It's not as easy as just deciding to keep it all to ourselves, of course, but that was not the case back in those times. And so the economy is more resilient than it was both here in the U.S. and globally than at that time. So, it's a very nervous time, and there's a lot more to be said about that conflict. We haven't seen huge changes in the markets for a number of reasons. Some of the growth engines that we've had especially in our economy are still doing quite well. And so there's hope that I don't know what the right word is, but words are, but cooler heads will prevail. Some sort of sense will be brought to this, and one way or another, we'll be able to get into a better situation. So there's a lot to be said about it. And I know there are a lot of opinions
Yeah.
around it, but in terms of economics and portfolios, the takeaways are when we've had conflicts in the Middle East and around energy producers, if you look back at the history of them, the clear pattern has been that the markets have a little bit of trouble
Early on.
early on
Right.
and then recover with force coming out of it. Um, Nothing's ever 100%. You can't, know for certain how everything will play out each time, but that has been the pattern. And so one of the things that just on a personal level for everybody, not just with this conflict, but in general, I think is important to keep in mind is be as informed as you want to be and feel you should be, but other than that, try to stay away from overwhelming yourself with the news, and especially try to steer clear of news when it is obviously fear mongering, because that generally is they're trying to manipulate your views of things instead of you getting the information you need, and that doesn't lead to anything good.
And that was the point of this podcast. It's a very short one, but it was something that we both felt very important to get out in front of all of you, so you could hear our voices around this and what's going on. I think the big takeaway, and we said it just now, is in the short term, and obviously things can change, but in the short term, volatility in the market is to be expected. That is typically what happens during something like this. And so to be informed, if you have any questions, you have concerns, you always can give us a call and reach out. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of the day and a good week ahead.
Yeah.